Welcome to the Just Move podcast. We're back.
Back. This time in a pretty sweet particular spot.
Snazzy space.
Less mobile, but more stable.
More fancy.
Which may or may not be the case for our mental states too. Less mobile, more stable.
So, Justin.
Mike.
Where you been?
Where have I been? Literally, where have I been?
Yeah. Last podcast was in
June of 2021, which is already a year and a half ago. To be honest, I had not realized how rapidly we got them out. So some kudos definitely to you, even to myself for just doing it in the first place. June 2021 doesn't feel like it. The time has gone so rapidly. Here we are. And that last episode I got was in the awesome interview with Zach Wright, which will not be the last time we speak to the man.
No.
And so since that time, a lot has happened. There's been a lot of energy and attention and focus on spending time in Italy. That's been a big one. And then, of course, with Just Move, that's ongoing. So part of that was continued while I was in Italy. But considering post-pandemics and all these things and just how the industry has taken quite a while to start changing direction back towards a positive, a lot of 2021 was great, but it was also very volatile, tumultuous. So getting the podcast going, training was going well, continually experimenting, growing the attributes I want to grow. And I had such a variety of how I was coaching people because I was no longer based at a Virgin Active gym where things were relatively stable. And that even then was still undefined as to how they were going to move forward. And so a lot of coaching, a lot of attention gearing up because the plan was to head to Italy initially April 2020.
Yes.
That was the initial plan. I was going to go there just to do a parkour coaching certification and get assessed.
Which was right in the hotspot of Italy, was the hotspot
the hotspot. And
luckily... that's exactly where you needed to go, was...
Like exactly that same region, or at least on that plane was the same region. So that obviously got changed. And so that became December 2021. And so planning to get visas, sort out finances, line up work, if that was a potential option, was December 2021. Gearing up towards that time, another mess up. Lost a flight. Omicron, whatever it is. There was a time in which not just Italy, a few spots were not allowing people for the time being, and from the southern hemisphere, some spots. Messed that up, and long story short, it's no longer December 2021 going to Italy. And that would have been for a slightly longer time, kind of going over and sort of justifying the time going there. Then, especially considering that Jen, following her attempts to get into studies in Pretoria, subsequent to not getting that, she looked globally, and that ended up being Italy, which was great because there's always a desire to go there anyway, learn the language, check the culture. So that became much more solidified. So that allowed us to have a reason to be there for a good few months, which turned out to be about 6 months. So we ended up going there in the middle of May last year, 2022. And that was a whole awesome adventure, of which I'll unpack for future episodes because I managed to do lots of adventurous things there, regards with parkour and other training, just the travel of it in general, the food, oh my gosh, the food. All of that will come out more in the future. So we spent 6 months.
Way too many pictures of pizza sent my way.
Pictures. I had to hold them back. I'm trying very hard not to be a pizza snob. So that was an awesome time. Also had many challenges due to that, but also with all that went into doing that, complications. And so 6 to 7 months was there. And in that time especially, I was working a lot on the skills that I want to use more for the Just Move brand. So getting things more online, using different forms of mediums to get the message out there, get more people to see what kind of things are on offer, what they can learn. And that'll be something to grow going forward alongside all the direct coaching I'm doing and anything else that has some stability That's the plan in general. So we got back to Cape Town the end of November last year, 2022. And in 2 months have just flown by. There's been a lot of resorting out and shuffling things and stuff in personal life that we had to line up.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to February 2023. I had a few
What a terrifying
jottings.
thought.
Yeah. I wrote down a few dates early in the year where I was still writing 2022. I was like, oh gosh, just add the little
I did that
extra.
this morning.
Yeah. At least it wasn't 2021. And so I'm here. That is where I've been.
Okay.
Mostly Italy, different parts of it. And back home in Cape Town, as beautiful as ever, with lots of things to sort out, lots of things on the horizon. And just great to be back home with family and friends and the friends of nature, as in the mountain, the ocean, and the forests.
Oh, yeah.
My happy places. To find that again and to engage with that essentially every day is always a good calling and a good place to be.
Sweet. So give us a teaser of where you were. Just a quick rundown of Italy.
A teaser.
Sort of the teaser reel before.
Teaser reel. So Italy gave me a chance to take my camera, take the bicycle that I bought in Italian, cruise around Rome, take pictures, take videos, make videos that are designed for people to follow along with in terms of a movement practice. There were videos that were general travel style, exploring what's around and anything in between. We were mostly in Rome for about 4 straight months, but in Italy in general, we were able to see some parts of the north near Venice because we knew some people there. So
that's where you started.
So that's where we started. So we flew into a place called, it's the Veneto region, which is where Venice is. And the people we know stay in a little place called Merano, which is about 50 Ks from the coast to the east. And we stayed there for 2 to 3 weeks. What was cool is that those people, the guys, a capoeira teacher that we trained with while we were in China. So we stayed with them. They graciously hosted us for a couple of weeks. Then we made our way down to Rome, where we were based most of the time. We also had a visit from my mom who stayed with us for a month. And so we took that as a chance to
do the tourist
go have
things.
little holidays. So by then, with all the riding around and sussing things out in Rome, which is a surprisingly beautiful to me city, because I knew it would be madness and chaos and busy, and it is. Very touristic, extremely touristic, but also immensely beautiful. There's so much to discover there in many aspects of what you could call discover, whether it's something cerebral, whether it's something artistic, whether it's something physical that you're interested in. There's a lot to do there, and it's just so massive. So with mom being there, we had a chance to do like, okay, cool, mom, this is a cool spot. Let's go take the bus, spend the day like this. And then that was in and amongst all the other little trips I was doing for myself to nearby towns. Because Jen had a pretty established routine. She was going to do studies and do some practical work in the vet practice. And I was playing house husband, student, investigator, homemaker in all that time. And it wasn't easy, to be honest. It sounds like a great time. There were lots of challenges. There was a lot of me figuring stuff out about videography and editing and making content, which was great. But I realized there's a reason why there's entire teams and there's entire careers that do this for a living. And I was like, yeah, I'm scratching the surface here. This is fascinating stuff. I love it. I'm learning a lot. But it just took a lot of effort and time. So I went through courses. I experimented. I made all these things. There's a lot in the bag in terms of footage and stuff that is average to good, that is usable, that will be coming out in the next while, that I just need to put together in a usable way. So yeah, some of the fun stuff as well. We were able to see Tuscany, the Tuscan region, for a small holiday. And we went to another Tuscan region place for a holiday for a week, which is called Isola di Alba, which is almost like sunrise, but Alba in Italian with the A is sunrise. This is a E. I don't know if it's a name or not. I should probably check that out. Beautiful little spot because it's quite well known to go to Sardinia or the south of Italy in the summer there. By the way, summer in Italy, summer in Rome particularly is madness. There's just this mass export of the local people. And the tourism is consistent enough that in that summertime when the locals are out and many of the small, medium businesses are closed, you still have a busy city.
Yeah.
But it feels completely different. Services are running differently. Transportation is different. You've got a general theme park feel at the obvious sites. But where we were, which was slightly out of the center, you could feel the difference immensely. And the Italians still make use of certain services so strongly that if they're not functioning, you notice it very easily. It's like your post offices, the way that you get tickets for anything that you do, the restaurants, of course, that's a massive part of it. It was also beautiful to see, but it kind of like swept the feet from under me. I didn't realize how different it could be. So we were able to see the small island, which was a less obvious travel choice, but it was amazing. It was like what a holiday should be. You go to the spot, it's near the coast, you're chilling for a week, you're exploring a little bit. Of course, Jen and I were very active in that time too. Canoeing, diving, swimming, running on the hills. Beautiful spot. And then we came back to Rome for the last couple of while. And then for the last couple of weeks, we went down south to the Puglia region. The Puglia region is very popular amongst Italians and probably lots of other Europeans too. It's probably where you've seen the pictures of like the bluest waters and some of the older towns. It's right at the heel of the country.
Right.
The capital there is Lecce. Lecce also didn't get a chance to see much of that specific city. Beautiful, beautiful place. But even just where we were. So Jen knows someone who's a vet who worked at the aquarium and does work mainly in the UK. So he and his partner, his wife, are building up a villa there in the south. And we were there in olive picking season. So it was like the undefined, but like you're here to work in exchange kind of feeling.
Yeah.
But it was awesome. So a lot of manual labor, but still a lot. And luckily, Brandon, the guy who lives there, had awesome bicycles for us to use, mountain bikes. And he's an avid cyclist and avid little adventure guy as well. So the time down there for it was 3 weeks, I believe, as well, was amazing. I basically became a full-on Italian cyclist dude, just cycling every day for at least an hour just to get to and from locations.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful time. And the perfect time in terms of the year because it was still very warm, but we completely missed the tourist season down there.
Right.
And the water there, there were a few times where I said, like, someone needs to explain to me in a scientific manner how this water is so blue, how it's so clear. You jump in, and there's like a sheer drop of cliff.
Yeah.
As opposed to our sandbanks. And it goes pretty deep. Fish are there, there's rocks and all sorts of interesting things to see. But it's so blue. And there's so many opportunities to just jump in the water from cliffs. So that's what my days could be at some times if you plan it well. Because it's quite a mission to cycle there. The closest town, beautiful little town called Castro. It's about, you can get there in half an hour if you steam the legs a bit. It's quicker if you want. But you end up carrying everything with you on the day.
Yeah.
So in my case, I'd be like, cool, I want to go and film something here. But I also need to make sure that I can take something I can get wet in and make sure I have snacks and all that because euros, they catch up to you. But the coffee there was amazing in Italy in general and like very well priced actually. So there's a lot I could go on about. So essentially landed in the north, couple of weeks there, saw some buddies, down to Rome, based there. I met an amazing parkour community that I was able to train with. And I even got chances to interview the guys and get some footage and really, really unlock some good networking potential there, that was a big tick for the soul. And of course the body. So the training was intense. It's kind of more the old school version of parkour training, which is definitely more the side that I lean on in case you weren't aware. And then, a lot of projects going there, a lot of grinding and learning new things for Jen and I. So I saw that as an opportunity to kind of face the challenges as they come and do what you need to do. But you're learning these things. You're not here it's impossible for it to just feel like a holiday. When you're between a visitor and a citizen, you have to adapt pretty quickly. And having done that kind of situation the last few years, it's tough. It's really, really hard on you if you're not doing it and you're not ready for why, or if you're not understanding that it's just going to be hard some days. And in Italy, our language was okay, but on average, it's very hard to communicate anything beyond courtesies and the minimums. Jen was pretty good. I was still learning a lot. I was able to do most of what I needed to. But that was just tough. That was a good time. So Rome was pretty intense. It was amazing. I'll never forget the things I was able to do just casually. And this is also something I'll talk about more in the future. But if you're living in a place where a bicycle is a good mode of transport, just do it. It's as long as it's safe, as like in terms of how. I mean, no one in Rome agreed that riding a bicycle is a good idea. But I was like, sure, let me try it and see, and I'll let you know, because I'm quite quick on the bike if I need to be. But yeah, get a bicycle. It's freaking amazing if the place that you're in supports that, and if it's safe overall. So that, and then the last few weeks felt a lot more like a holiday, and we had time to sleep in, although we were very busy with picking olives and general things around the house, like even just picking fruit, the sheer amount of fruit trees around the pomegranates, or helping with little bits of things. But other than that, we were hosted well enough. It felt like a time to ease off and prepare for returning to South Africa. And nearing to the end of our time there in Italy, we had a lot of things that, okay, now we know what's happening from Jen's point of view. And now we know how I need to adapt and improvise and grow things as they always have been. But now it feels a lot more funneled and focused. So for the next while, going to be a lot more things in terms of the growth of the brand Just Move, and definitely in terms of personal growth, as if we need more of that. I guess we always do.
More challenges.
More challenges. Just when you think it's getting easy, bam, life won't let you get bored. And try to stay on the positive side of that. It's been very challenging the last while, and to be honest, the last couple of years, just navigating all this. But I mean, compared to what so many people have had to go through, I'm very grateful for how we've come through it. I'm grateful for the opportunities and the support. So this is me continuing what I know has been very important and very good, and that it's a way in which I can help people. And that's through getting them more active, getting them knowing how to move better. And as always, I've kind of seen how important it is to combine the mental aspect of that. And so a lot of my efforts in the last while and now going forward are about aligning that better. Not everyone's open to it, or it will take a lot of time for people to really get the chance to experience it or find how it benefits them. But I know it's good stuff. It's not just because I've used it, it's because I see it in action and I see it with the people around me. And it's always just amazing when the stuff that you know and you've practiced and that you've yourself researched and studied gets backed up by science, or where research finally gets released or something like that. So this continually happens. So that's why I feel very focused now. So there's a lot coming, too much. A lot of it is still mostly handled by me. I'm very glad that I have a genius on the other end of this table to handle more of the technical stuff and be like a freaking awesome soundboard.
There's someone behind me.
Like, who's that dude back there? He's got long hair and an awesome chin line. So yeah, there's lots coming, lots in the pipeline, and it will unfold very soon.
So that's where you've been. So now what is the plan moving forward?
With me or with Just Move?
Just Move.
All right, because they're the same thing.
Basically.
All right, with Just Move. So the past has been spoken of lightly, and that will come out more. Right now, I've been doing as best I can to set up patterns and strategies within the chaos. So it's been wonderful to come back to this beautiful city. It just happens to also be you come back when everything's winding down and there's a transition into the new year.
Yeah.
You're starting in a new place. That's also beautiful because it gives it a somewhat of a blank slate. So I've kind of decided to narrow down my focus to a few things, if that's even possible, because I still feel like there's so many awesome things to do that just pull you in different directions.
Yeah.
And so in terms of Just Move, the mission is the same as it always has been. And just in case we need a slight refresher on that, is it's kind of not only me as a coach and as someone to teach movement and methodologies, Methodologies. Wow. Movement modalities.
Good thing this isn't an English podcast.
Yeah, blah, blah. That's a great word. Methodologies and modalities. It's about sharing that information across in many different ways. So very important pillars for me, of course, just is movement itself. So training, using the body, fitness, strength, skill acquisition. But a vital component and something I'm focusing on more now is connecting people to nature. And some of that will fall on the side of being more esoteric. Some of it will be a lot more performance focused, a bit more logical, like do these techniques, try this out, this much time plus this equals that kind of idea. There are people that seek that. And there's a lot of in between. So the basic concept is to get people moving outside if preferred, or at least training in a way that allows them to do that more in their own time. Because the stuff you can learn from nature and the stuff you can learn from becoming more self-empowered and independent will always outweigh any straight thing that you could learn, any specific technique, unless you do that for a long time. So that's a big focus. It always has been a focus. But initially, the brand, what I was focusing on is to connect the different ways in which you can train or do sports or do a practice. So I still am. And I was always intrigued by how someone who climbs versus someone who runs versus someone who dances, they'll very often box themselves in, and they don't necessarily have the opportunity or get out. They can't always get out of the stigma or their self-definition of trying something else because it's linked to something else. Or they're doing something where this is the only way you do it. And I love bridging those gaps. I love seeing how someone just doing something a little differently benefited their practice or was able to just think differently about a concept. I've been lucky enough to experience that myself, but also just when I teach people, when I train people. Most people that I've trained, they've come to me from a gym environment or they come from a sporting environment, and filling the gaps with just basic understandings of what's out there has always helped people more than any, again, straight thing I can say to them. Because a lot of that stuff you can find, to be honest. You can find these things, but how to put it together, how to thread them through gracefully, that's powerful stuff. So it's always been a thing, and I'm going to focus a lot more on that. So that's the kind of flavor of things moving forward. Then in terms of the more practical things, in the last months, I've been gearing up towards representing Just Move more in online formats. I never ever thought I would be anyone that starts up a YouTube channel, but that has happened. And it's actually pretty exciting because I think it's a great format for me to just share long form information in the form of, you can use these as sessions or you can use these as educational tools. And then from there, get ideas and feedback and some kind of growth and loop of people to investigate what else they may be interested in, and I can better advise them or to share it in different ways. So I got a YouTube channel. It's Just Move.
Where this podcast will be as well.
And definitely try and get some clips on there from here. That's pretty exciting. The plan with this podcast is, here's one, and going to make this as consistent as possible. So I'm always going to try and pull Mike in to get us going because he asks good questions. Good questions are important. But if, brother in arms, good friend, and you have a good balance of poking and testing and challenging and setting things up, a lot of what I'm trying to achieve with the brand is getting people to get out there more, appreciate just the pure joy of being active in general. There's always a place to do that in a gym or in a specific way. But if you can get people to get out of those parameters, so much more can happen. So much more. Out
of the set boxes.
Exactly. There's so much more they can access, even that they already have inside unconsciously, but take that even further. So we've got the YouTube, we've got the podcast that we're going to keep going. Going to get lots of guests that I always wanted to have on here. And there's so many more people that are around us that inspire us or that we know from 5 or 6 degrees outwards that we can bring in and get some ideas out. So the point of the podcast is exactly that. Educate, inspire, network, and share those ideas. And that will take the form of interviews, lessons, conversations, as much as we can to get some flow of that. And then I am also now based once again at the Silo Virgin Active at the waterfront. I was a PT there in 2019. So we had just come back from Thailand. Almost a very similar situation of starting over blank slate to a degree. And again, didn't think I would end up going to that gym, which is categorized as a classic, which there's a few in the world, and they're slightly different to the other flagship gyms around. And so I was there throughout 2019 until everything went on a spin, and took a while and kept up, was always involved with what was happening from the company, from the brand, because they themselves have had a lot of changes even prior to pandemics. And so I've situated myself back there again with the idea of like, it's a good space to focus on seeing a few people in that environment, and it will give me a chance to have a workspace. It'll give me a chance to focus, and it's close by enough here and around that I could start growing these things in parallel, getting people out, doing the podcast, making content online, seeing my good people, all of that. And so that's where I'll be. But I basically see that as one thing that I do.
Yeah.
Because I still have clients outside. I still get people as much as I can to be in the parks. So that'll keep going as much as possible. And then from this week, actually, the 8th of February will be the first one, but I'm going to run these right into at least the end of summer. Maybe I'll change a few things depending on the sunrise, the seasonal. But that's also kind of the idea for these. I'm calling them simply the get outside sessions, GO for short. It's a happy coincidence. There was a couple of names I thought I'd bring to it, but I'd rather bring those through in what themes overlap. So I kept it very slim, very smart, very slim. And there's just 3 days in the week that someone can join in these sessions. And I'm seeing it as a monthly membership idea.
Yeah.
You can, of course, drop in. And I'll obviously offer it to people that I want them to join, like clients or friends and family. But I originally had 4 days in the week that you could go and move outside in some way.
Yeah.
And I've brought it down to 3 or 4 categories of how I'm going to go about this. So at the moment, there's 3 things that have overlapping variation in them. Parkour is a very foundational pillar. And there's still so much that people don't understand about how much you can use it, how much depth it has. But that's the idea of exploring a space, strengthening yourself, seeing what your barriers are, when you should pass them or not, understanding your fears, gaining skills, and doing that in an environment. So that's one pillar of no matter what sessions we're doing. So there's a parkour session in a week that focuses more on those concepts. The training is going to be naturally harder, more intense, but of course, it's accessible to any level and anyone should give it a shot, especially if you think you know what it is. Come give it a shot because it's so much more. And every time that I find a community overseas, or I learn from someone who's visiting, or I interact with the community at large, it always still surprises me how much power it has. And it exactly speaks to how I train and how I think. It's understanding yourself, connecting mind to body, facing different environments, and applying that elsewhere. It's beautiful. So I'll always have that. And so in this week, it is a week as an example, there will be a purely parkour session. So those environments will probably change, but I'm going to keep that more in your typical urban setups.
Yeah.
But I would love to definitely also have a parkour session that focuses on purely natural environments, which is actually where a lot of my parkour training is done. There's less people bothering you. There's much more complexity. The air is generally fresher. And people bother you less. They're just like, who's this dude up in the trees? Cool, carry on. So that for now, the parkour in the natural environment, I'm going to save in the back burner. It's going to come. Those will come, definitely always open to that. And that will be the first thing I'll do as soon as there's more schedule, more interest, more people coming consistently. The other part is a combination of cold immersion, where a big focus will be on breath work. Breath work is something I'll do throughout most of the training and coaching that I do. But in this particular session, there's going to be more of a focus on it. and we'll have the direct feedback of the cold, but that's just one way in which to use that. So there's going to be a breathwork and cold immersion. There's so many places I'd love to go and do this. So maybe for the future, we'll grow into that. And at the moment, I'm keeping it on this side of town in Saunders, Rocks Beach. It's quite popular, it's accessible. I know that people will be able to find their way there and reasonably still get to work in time in the area, that kind of a thing. And it's early enough that if you're working elsewhere, you can probably still make it. And that will have its own sort of interesting challenges and flexibility depending on how people perceive it, how they take it, how they progress, what they want from it. Because that for me is more on the mental side of things. Never underestimate the effect that cold and just breathing and focusing the mind can have on the body. But as with all of them, the mental side is something I don't want to ignore. So we've got the parkour focus session, we've got breathing and cold immersion. And then similar to that one, we've got what I'm calling for the time being movement and meditation. So this is where I'm hybridizing some of the natural movement, the parkour concepts, but still focusing more on the mindfulness side and getting people just to spend some time in a forest environment. So there's just not many forest environments around. I think it's something like 0.5% of this country is forest or something like that. I saw that on the side.
Makes sense.
Very little. So we've got beautiful forest just on this side of the mountain. I've played and run and explored and sat and listened in Newlands Forest so much over the past more than a decade. I've gained so much from it, and I've trained lots of people there too. People who have fear of heights, people who don't feel safe to walk and hike on their own, anything like that. That place has become such a treasure for these experiences. And again, you can go there and learn a skill, get some particular fitness, but you'll get some benefits you may not even realize. So I want to make sure that that still happens, that you're active, you're physical, you're engaging, but you also pay attention to what you can gain from it purely from an immersive point of view. So it's observational stuff, it's mindfulness practices. So the cold immersion and the breath work and the meditation and movement, they're similar to each other, but I'm going to put more movement skills and balance challenges and hanging and climbing and things like that because there's trees and ravines. It's beautiful in that session. So we have a beautiful setup of 3 different ways you can get outside. One is more demanding straight up, metabolically, physically. They all have a sense of meditative elements in them, or mindfulness at least. It could be challenging, but I hope to encourage people to see it as an opportunity to go along their path and not just look at any one aspect through one lens, but kind of access the mind via the body or access the mind via observations. And then down the line, of course, if I can get more people involved and it grows, that sense of community. And that, of course, is one piece of how I'd like to give people the chance to experience these ideas. And to be honest, I mean, that's a version of what I would like to offer people. I would love to offer people the chance to really escape and have this experience where they really challenge themselves in a natural environment, but it's for their future ongoing health. It's not just something that's supposed to break them. On the contrary, it's supposed to try to break you in some sense, that the world will always try anyway, but something that where you can learn to face yourself, face the challenges you're going through, spend some time in nature, which is always amazing. Like even if you just go camping, that's an amazing experience if you do it right. Align yourself with the natural light and dark. There's so much power to that. So this is kind of one element of what I hope to grow and build to offer people in the future. That will take a lot more time, collaboration, and it's actually very exciting. So that's on the cards as well, and will come up as we build this. We got me at Silo, we got the podcast going, we got YouTube. So keep up with the general social media. That'll be a good place to see what kind of videos I'm making. But I always encourage people to send the questions. Like, what would you like to see? It's early on that I can still figure out what kinds of videos work, what would benefit people. At the very least, it should be something usable. And then somewhere down the line, usable, maybe even entertaining, but very much around education and giving you tools to work with. And that's, I'd say, what's on offer, what's on the go.
Sounds good.
So,
And then just when and where, again, times and locations for those outside sessions.
So I'll definitely keep any changes or updates or anything
Yeah.
like that, which I don't anticipate changes as such. But we are following the sun. We are following the tides at times
And the weather.
and the weather. So I know that I would go to these things in almost any weather that can be thrown, but I don't expect that of everyone. The schedule as it is now for the 3 days in the week, which will be the same going forward, I've just posted that up onto my Instagram channel, _just_move. And I'll keep sharing that around. If you're on the newsletter email list, you would have got that same schedule, but that is also accessible via the Instagram link in bio. So have a look at that. There's more information there, but essentially I've made it a Wednesday morning would be the cold dip and the immersion and the meditative breath work. And that starts at 6:30 in the morning, greeting the sunrise. Then we've got...
At Saunders.
That's at Saunders
Rock.
Yeah, I call it Saunders for short, and it's Saunders Beach. But when I checked it on maps, it's called Saunders Rocks Beach. I was like, okay, cool. I'll just put it at that in case people search for this thing. So that's there, which is at the end of Sea Point. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a wonderful little hotspot, so to speak. There's a tidal pool, and there's areas very much close to it where you can access the water. And if the point of these sessions is that I know who's coming and that you've signed up, that would be ideal. I'm trying not to have too many people walk in. Of course, I'll do what I can to accommodate, but I need to know so that I can check the weather, check the tides, check the people, and then give the best service and the most meaning out of each of those sessions. So we got that on Wednesdays at 6:30, and I've put that time till about 7:15, but it really depends. So I anticipate that people doing that who are new to it or they have different reasons for doing it. 20 minutes, half an hour in that session might be enough. But I know that a good 45 minutes will give us a chance to really make a good idea of like, right, let's focus, let's breathe, let's dip, let's see how you do. And then we get out of here in a safe manner, in a way that doesn't stress you out more than it should. Because everyone reacts differently to such things. So of course, personally, I benefit a lot from being in cold water, whether it's helping with injury management, which I'll definitely talk about more in the future, or just, again, to calm the mind, but mostly to surfing. That's been my way. So it's something you need to respect. And you don't know how someone will react, even if they're used to it. So that'll be quite a fun thing to do. 6:30, Saunders on a Wednesday. Friday morning, assuming the sun is more visible earlier on the southern suburb side.
Yeah.
Newlands I've put at 6:15. And unfortunately, I've had to factor in traffic things, but putting it on the Friday, I thought there's more leeway with traffic. So that's 6:15 in the morning until 7:15 in the morning, a good hour. Because there I would like the idea of some of it will be explicit, kind of, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And some of it will be explorative or implicit. So an hour is a good minimum time. And if someone wants to, if they don't need to head out, and as long as they feel safe, because there's always people around there, they can stay there for longer. But in terms of what I want to give people the option of is an hour of being with them and guiding and offering movement techniques, concepts that they can learn through trying, as well as more of the mindfulness practices. And that, I think an hour is good for that. We'll see how we do. It's super early, I know. And as the sun changes, as the weather changes, I'll see if there's enough people that require changing of times and how these are going. And then Saturday morning at 8:30. Currently, I put the location at Greenpoint. And this is, it's good to get in communication with me if you want to find out. But I'm going to make these sessions close to where the stadium is. So between there and the athletics track, that kind of region. Because around there, there's a lot of opportunity to move about. And there might be like a small jog if you want to base ourselves somewhere else on the promenade, for an example. Or I'll be able to move around there and say, cool, we're meeting here at this time. But generally speaking, it's Greenpoint. And then if it gets popular or bigger or we do more, I can base it at other locations as well. And that's a 90-minute session. So you can definitely expect that to be naturally more challenging. There will be a lot more components of conditioning and challenge and facing fears, depending on, again, the person. But of course, you'll be led through training, you'll be led through techniques to help you not just build the practice of moving in an environment, but to build the practice of self-development and self-understanding. And we're going to do it in a nice, challenging way. I'm going to push the people there a bit more than certainly the other sessions. So in that way, I want to keep more of the original parkour spirit coming through with that. So that's Saturday morning, 90 minutes, 8:30 to 10 in the Greenpoint area. And for now, I can say we'll meet next to the athletics track. But if you're in comms, I'll be able to give you the specific pins and make sure of who to expect so we can get the session going and give, again, the best coaching that I can. And yeah, bring more people, because I would love to bring more coaches in, because there are great parkour teachers around and there are great people who are natural leaders or have more experience with training that can help kind of become their own guidance and build more of a network in terms of that, so that it's actually kind of normal. I'm going to go do some parkour. Like, oh, that's the crazy stuff. It's like, no, it's a form of training, actually, and make the most out of it. That's the plan. So you've got 3 opportunities. You can choose your weapon to come to those, and then bring it on, because I'd love to give more. I'd love to make that the basis of what I coach. So I think it's so important for people to get out there, especially while the weather is relatively reliable. There'll be wind, there'll be changing in the sunrises, but we'll always keep in communication to make sure that the point of it is still followed through. And we're going to spend time in the early morning sun, moving, connecting to our minds, and gearing our focus for not just the day ahead, but the week, the months, and just how to sort out what it is that's going on in our heads, if that's possible. Because it is possible, or at least the belief that it's possible is powerful. And that's what we'll do.
Cool.
Pretty sweet.
And I think that's a wrap for our recap and update episode.
Yeah. Of course, if you have any other questions or specific things you want to know, you've got the communication channels. Our email is easy to find on Instagram, Facebook, but we'll put it up in any notes as well.
Or in the YouTube comments.
On the YouTube comments, bring it on. And yeah, there's lots to come. There's too many things, not enough time in the day. But it's pretty exciting.
Figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Just keep chipping away.
Cool.
Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure. Until next time.
Until next time.
Just move.
Just move.